homesteaders, gardeners, and cooks. Welcome to Miles Away Farm. My name is Jennifer, and tonight we are making Japanese curry with leftover turkey from Thanksgiving. And first, we're peeling this kind of sad onion. It's a little more sad than I realized it was, but that's why I brought it in, because I figured it needed to be used next. I grow both red onions and white onions. And red onions never store as long as white onions do. I'm not quite sure why that is, but, and this one was a little bit split. The great thing about onions, though, is even when you get a little bit of decay like this on the outside, because they're in layers, you can almost always salvage the next layer down or the next, more than, just keep peeling until you get to good stuff, basically, is the short version. And so even though some of this is going to be waste, we're still going to have plenty of onion we can use here. See, look at that, beautiful. Got rid of the bad part. The rest of it is perfectly usable. And I may have told this story before, I can't remember, but I was a super picky eater as a kid. I would eat canned green beans, corn on the cob, iceberg lettuce with Thousand Island dressing. That was pretty much it. Didn't want anything with onions, raw or cooked, no peppers of any kind. It's just super, no broccoli, no cauliflower, super crazy picky. And I was about maybe 12, probably 10 or 11. And we were living in Coronado, my mother and I, which is a kind of a suburb peninsula off of San Diego. And my mother had a friend there who was throwing a dinner party about this time of year, maybe a little later. It might have been for New Year's, I can't remember. And she was making a turkey curry. And I was, didn't want to have anything to do with curry initially, but I was in the house all day while she was making it, and the house smelled so amazing. And I decided that even though I was normally really picky, that I definitely wanted to try some of this curry. And so I had some of the curry, and it was absolutely fabulous. And she had all kinds of fun additions to sprinkle over the top. So things like, chopped coconut and peanuts and chopped hard-boiled egg, and so there were all these toppings, and which made it really fun. What kid doesn't love toppings? And it turned out that I really liked curry. And then I spent probably 30 years trying to recreate that curry in my own kitchen, off and on. Obviously not when I was 10, and I could never figure out, I'd do Indian curries, I would make my own curry powder, I would try Thai curries of all kinds, and it never matched it. It just was never as good. I made some good curries, but they were never that curry of my childhood that I loved. This is my last fresh bell pepper from the garden, by the way, and there's a little bit of damage on it because it's now almost the 1st of December, and so there was a little bit of schmutz, but we're just going to cut the bad spots off, and it's going to be completely fine. Anyway, so yeah, on and on and on. Tried all these different curries. Nothing was quite good enough. I'm a fan of the website Serious Eats, and in their feed one day, they had a piece on Japanese curry. And I was like, Japanese curry? I've never heard of Japanese curry. What the heck is that? And so started reading about it. And Japanese curry uses curry blocks. And so this is an example. These are two examples of Japanese curry. And it's basically a curry sauce or a curry powder in a roux. And a roux is oil and flour or oil and some kind of thickener that has been cooked together that creates a sauce and a thickening. And I had never heard of it, and it turned out that it had been in my grocery store. It's a really common, particularly this one, the golden curry. You can find this in almost any grocery store, even if you don't live in a place that has a lot of fancy foods. And I had been walking past it in the Asian aisle all that time and just had completely ignored it because it just sounded really weird and I didn't know what it was. So I decided, well, I have to try Japanese curry. And one of their big things about why you should eat it is because it's a super quick weeknight meal because you don't have to do much fussing. And so I bought a block of it, brought it home, made a really simple curry out of it, and it tasted like the curry that I had when I was a kid. And so my guess is when she made that turkey curry, that was actually the kind of curry that she used because nothing else matches it. Anyway, so long story short, I found my childhood curry, and now I always keep some blocks of this in the pantry for a quick weeknight meal. The standard for this is just potatoes, carrots, onions, some kind of meat. That's typically what they're recommending just on the back of the package. I like to just use it for fridge clean out, and so it's a little bit of whatever you've got on hand. We're gonna use leftover turkey from Thanksgiving. We are gonna do some potatoes, and if you've watched my pizza video that I just posted a couple of days ago, when I made that pizza video, I also roasted some squash to go on that, and then the rest of the roasted squash is gonna go on this because I knew that I was gonna be making this. And so we're gonna have roasted squash and leftover turkey and potatoes, and it's gonna be glorious, and it's gonna come together really quickly. These are potatoes from the garden this year, and I always have a bunch of little ones, as you do, and I always set them aside so that I can try to eat them soonest because they don't store nearly as well. They just don't have the volume. And so when they start to sprout, they go wilty really quick. This is a really fun one. This variety is called Pinto, which I just love. I love the multicolored, and it's got a really lovely texture. It's kind of akin to a Yukon Gold. So I've got just a mix here, and I'm not measuring anything tonight. I'm just literally throwing some things together. This one is called Smilin' Eyes. And then some of these are russets. The russet is a caribou. And there's a little bit of trimming I'll need to do on this. And the longest part of this is just gonna be cooking these until the potatoes are done. You can see the green on that. Don't wanna be eating that, so I'm gonna peel the ones that have got obvious green on them. Like this one, just, sometimes when they've got cracks like that, you gotta cut them just to get to into the cracks so you can get the dirt off of them. And I'm just gonna split these just so they're opened up a little bit so they cook a little faster. I basically just want these to be bite-sized, so some of these bigger ones I'm gonna cut twice. So in that Serious Eats piece, I'll link to it in the description, that was talking about this. They did a taste test of a whole bunch of different varieties. This is the only one I've ever seen locally, but you can find this at Asian grocery stores. And so the last time I was at an Asian grocery store, I bought this one just so I could try it. They actually also have a recipe for making your own. I've never been that hardcore. Half the trick on this is actually figuring out how to make it, just because the instructions are obviously written for an Asian market and then translated into English. And so sometimes things get a little bit lost in the delivery. So half the time I'm like trying to figure out how much water to add and things like that. But we're just gonna work our way through it here. So I've got a little bit of grapeseed oil in the pan. You could use whatever neutral oil you like. And to this, I'm just gonna add our onion and our bell pepper. And I'm just gonna let this stir fry until I get a little bit of translucence on there. Probably 5 minutes, and then we'll add our potatoes and the water. All right, you guys, got a little bit of browning on this. It looks great. I'm gonna put in our potatoes. And then there's a lot of variation between these two boxes in terms of how much water. I'm going to just add enough to cover so that the potatoes can get done. So anywhere from 2 to 3 cups there probably. And we're gonna let that simmer with a lid on until those potatoes are tender, which is probably gonna take 10 to 15 minutes. So it's been 15 minutes here, and our potatoes are nicely cooked. There's still a little bit of firmness to them, but they're gonna cook with the rest of the stuff in this as well. All right, so now we're just gonna add the rest of our ingredients. So this is leftover, the last of our leftover turkey. Don't judge me. Give that a minute to warm up and loosen up here. I really probably should have put this in a bigger container, and I might have to shift it out. I got a lot of stuff I want to put in here. Okay, so our turkey's in here. I've got our roasted squash. I also have the last of the fresh broccoli that was in my fridge from a friend's farm that was a little bit buggy when I got it, and it just wasn't gonna hold any longer. And so I steamed it off the other night and put it over a baked potato, but I had some left, and so we're gonna throw the rest of the broccoli in here. We are gonna want some more liquid, I can tell. That looks about right. All right, I'm gonna let this come back up to a boil because I just threw a whole bunch of really cold stuff in here. And then we will add our curry blocks and we will have dinner. It's that fast. All right, moment of truth. We're adding our curry block. And you could make smaller batches and not add this entire thing. I've got a lot of food here, but that's the nice thing about it. You could just throw one of these squares into some leftovers and make it into a curry without using the entire box. I did decide to go ahead and use the Vermont version tonight. And basically these are wheat flour and some kind of oil and then a bunch of spices. And as soon as that curry block hits that hot liquid, it's gonna start to dissolve. And we're just gonna let this simmer for about 5 minutes and we should be ready to go. You can see this is already starting to get smaller. Smells so good already. All right, you guys, it's been 5 minutes or so, and I'm just gonna give this one more stir. Make sure everything is thoroughly dissolved and completely mixed in. And there you go, dinner is ready. That's all there is to it. So we're gonna put this over some rice and probably add some of my beautiful mango chutney that I often eat with curries. And maybe some chopped nuts and a little bit of coconut, and Bob's your uncle. Dinner. Great use of leftovers for this time of year. So there you go, tribe. Japanese curry. One of the few things that I don't make completely from scratch that is just an indulgence and delicious and well worth buying something from a box. Give it a try. Really great for fridge clean out. And if you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.